Greetings, Bat family. Welcome to Holy BatCast, brought to you by real fans for real movies. You can find us all over social media on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast and you'll find us. If you're a fan of the show and you want to support us, you can do that on Patreon. You don't have to, but if you would like to, that option is there. Patreon.com/HolyBatCast. And as always, a huge thank you to our patrons. You guys are awesome. You really help us out. I hope you know that. So big ol' hugs to all of y'all out there, wherever you are. Thank you. We're part of the Real Fans Podcast Network, so you can check out all those shows at rf4rm.com. And I'll just do the plug right now. Lots of fun Halloween content coming to the Real Fans show. So, if you're in the mood for spooky Halloween, go check that out. And as always, I am your host, Andy DiGenova. Same as always, you can find me on Instagram and Threads and Letterboxd. It's always just my name, Andy DiGenova. So, this episode, we're going to be reviewing Joker, Folie Deux. It's going to be terrific. It's going to be happy and fun. It's going to come on, get happy. It's just like the song says. So I hope everybody's in a great mood because this is just going to make it that much better. And so joining me for all the fun of this new film, I've got both of my Bat brothers. It's a special occasion. We all get to be together again. So first of all, out there in Indiana, hi, Jamie. It's Jamie Julie.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah.
Are you sad because of the Raiders? Are you sad because
I know where this conversation is going to go tonight? The Raiders suck.
All the above.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let's put a smile on that face.
You might have to paint it on because it sure ain't going to come naturally.
I'm going to call Kimbra. I'm going to have her drag you into a closet and smear a paint makeup on your face and it'll make you feel all better.
And she's outside decorating for Halloween as we speak, so she'd probably be down for that.
Atta girl. Also joining us, I can't believe the three of us are back together again. It's Brendan. Hey, Brendan.
Hello, Andy. How are you?
You know what? I'm great. I'm terrific. I'm feeling awesome. How are you?
I'm all right. Just to keep up the facade of the blood feud and, the fact that I'm not talking to Jamie, can you please tell Jamie I said hello?
Yes, I will. I will. Well, Jamie, Brendan says hi.
You tell him I said. Never mind.
Well, I'm glad you guys could put it aside yet again so we can all be together on this momentous occasion.
All my hate and aggression has moved over to Preston now, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know why you hate Preston. Everybody likes Preston, but Brendan, man. He's got let the hate flow through you, I guess.
I love Preston. He's such a cool dude.
Yeah. Well, until he steals your job.
Well, yeah.
He took my job. Anyway. We are going to talk about Joker. I've got emails, so depending on how long this chat goes, we might answer some emails. If it goes long, then maybe we won't. We'll save those emails till next time, but got quite a few. It's been a while, so we've got a lot piled up, but we'll just see how it goes, the way it happens. So we've got a new movie out there, technically a DC movie, technically a Batman adjacent movie. Both of those are, I don't know, in my opinion, kind of debatable, but that's just me. But there's a movie called Joker that also features a character called Harley Quinn, so we're going to talk about it. So without further ado, here we go. Our discussion of Joker, Folie Deux.
You should see it out there. They're all going crazy for you. They're saying you're a bad influence on me. Well, guess what?
That's life. Funny as it seems. Some people get their kicks just stepping on a dream.
It was released in theaters just this past weekend on October 4th. Pretty much everyone's back. Todd Phillips is back in the director's chair. Joaquin Phoenix is back in his Oscar-winning role of Arthur Fleck. And he is joined by none other than Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, a.k.a. Harley Quinzel, a.k.a. Lee Quinzel, however you want to say it. So we will start spoiler-free. It's been quite an interesting weekend watching the response to the film. both from critics and viewers and people we know and the box office, and what a ride. But it's out there now and everybody's got thoughts. So, Joker Folie Deux, spoiler free. Jamie, why don't you kick us off?
Oh, can I please?
Yeah, yeah.
So I saw this movie 2 days ago, and I walked out of the theater. I wasn't sure what to make of it. And usually if I stew with my thoughts for a few hours, maybe a day or so, I can usually wind up formulating some sort of at least a basis of opinion. Guys, I'm going to be honest. It's been 50 hours or so since I walked out of the theater. I still have no freaking idea what I watched or what I think of what I watched. It's one of those movies I almost wish I would have watched 2 or 3 times before we did this episode. But number one, that's really expensive. And number two, that probably would have accounted for 50% of the box office this weekend. And I really don't know how much time I want to spend with this movie because I just don't know what to make of it. I can tell you this much. To a certain point, I really, 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 really like this film. I dare say I go so far as to say I loved it to a certain point. And then I feel like it kind of fell off of a cliff and it never climbed its way back up. So I can at least say that much. But I don't know if it's because I was missing something or if it's because I didn't catch things the right way that I was supposed to, or if it's just that freaking weird or just so detached that I see that. Here's my problem. Even as I was watching the film, when it kind of went off that cliff that I mentioned, I thought to myself, is this movie brilliant and I'm not keeping up with it, or is this movie lazy and I'm trying to give it too much credit? And there's where I'm stuck. 2 days later, I don't know if it was brilliant or if it was crap. And maybe that's something to be said for art, that I can't formulate that opinion after over 48 hours. But as I sit here now, like I know at some point in the next 90 minutes or so, you're going to ask me for a letter grade. I have no idea what the hell I'm going to give it. None.
All right. Conflicted.
Very
conflicted.
And I'll say this much as well. I'll just throw this out there. And I mentioned this to our little summer movie chat thing that we had going on Facebook. I don't know who they made this movie for. Because it's too weird to appeal to the mass audience that were drawn to the first film in the numbers that they were. But it's nowhere near geeky enough for the geek audience to latch onto it. It's too far removed from, comic book pages, if you will, for lack of something else to reference. It just, I don't know who this movie is for. I just don't. So somebody else take over. I've got a headache already.
Yeah, I mean, I know who it's supposed to be for. It's supposed to be for everyone who turned out for the first one and made it $1 billion movie. But to your point, I don't even think we have to guess. It did not achieve that. But I mean, yeah, I think that was the thought, but interesting. So, Brendan, what about you?
Not too far removed from Jamie, actually. But like how you said, it's made for the people who made the first one $1 billion or plus movie. Like I said in my Letterboxd review, like I should be an easy lay for this movie. I should, because I'm a massive Batman fan, which not that Batman's part of this, but you know what I mean. And I genuinely thoroughly like the first movie. I think it deserved all the credit that it got, all the awards that it got. The box office was still a bit surprising, but it was what it was. It was somewhat of a phenomenon back in 2019. And I'm like you, Andy, like I really liked it. That said, I've seen it twice in the last 5 years. It's, as much as I like it, it's not something I want to revisit often or ever, because it's such a depressing, dark, it's not a fun movie to sit down and watch.
No, definitely not.
And it's not a world I felt I wanted or needed to revisit. And that's why, you know, I was never excited for this movie, because I didn't need to see more, you know? And I'm sure we've said it on this podcast before. The hook for me was Gaga. Like, I wouldn't say I'm a huge Lady Gaga fan, but I appreciate her as an artist. And I was curious to see what they'd do with her and Harley Quinn. And then when they said it was a musical and it has Gaga playing Harley Quinn, I'm like, okay, you've got my curiosity. But they never had my excitement. And going to see this movie, particularly, I saw it yesterday, so that's 3 days after it was released here in Australia. Hearing the word of mouth and stuff, I've never gone into a movie in a cinema before feeling more like it was homework than yesterday. And I said to my friend Maddie, who I went with, I said, honestly, if I hadn't committed myself to a podcast of this tomorrow morning, I probably would have bailed, because I'd had a couple of really bad nights' sleeps. And yeah, I honestly would have bailed seeing it yesterday and probably waited till it hit the net. But as for the movie itself, I'm very similar to Jamie. Like, I don't know what they were going for. And, you know, I did mention I was very tired. So 40-year-old man going into a cinema in a really comfortable recliner chair after having a big lunch. I did have a couple of micro sleeps in the first 45 minutes or so. Like, I'd blink and then a minute would have passed. I'm like, oh shit. So that happened a couple of times. But I didn't miss too much.
Let me tell you this. You didn't miss anything.
Yeah. But yeah, like Jamie, for the first chunk of it, micro sleeps aside, I was kind of with it. I was like, well, this is what I was expecting. It's just sort of more of the same from the first one. And, you know, you can't say it was badly acted. Like, all the actors are really working hard and putting in their best performances. And I was like, okay, so far I'm not seeing why this is hated. But then, yeah, it felt like it went on too long, firstly. And I can't pinpoint the exact moment where it lost me, but it just lost me somewhere along the line. And then things happen in the third act. And at the end of it, at the end of the first one, I was left there going, wow, that was really different, but that was really good. Like, I enjoyed it. It was very dark and dour, but that was a really good a really good film. This one, I sat there just, literally scratching my head. I'm like, what was that? You know, it was, I can't, no spoilers or anything, but I didn't like it. It just, it left me feeling nothing.
Well, I don't know where to start because I have a lot to say.
Which is funny, with your Letterboxd review, you said very little, but I'm like, oh, I can't wait for tomorrow.
Well, here's the thing. Like, often I will wait to post my Letterboxd review until after we go on the record with the podcast or whatever. I didn't. Last night I was like, no, I'm just going to post it. And yes, I kept it very succinct. Just, because I'm like, I knew we were going to talk about it anyway, but I'm like, who cares? Like, I'm not worried about it. I was comfortable just throwing it out there.
Sorry, Andy, for 1 second, I did forget to mention something, and it's something that is included in your review. If I never see anyone smoke a cigarette again in my life, it will be too soon. Holy shit.
So much cigarette acting.
It's ridiculous.
More cigarette acting than I've ever seen in my life.
Or care to see.
All the cigarette acting. Every single scene starts with either Joaquin,
that's where the budget went,
or Gaga pulling out a cigarette, lighting it, and then then talking with the cigarette the whole time.
It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. It's funny that you noticed it, because I didn't know how many people would notice. But
man, 10 minutes in, I'm like, are you serious? Like, is this?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
At a certain point, I just turned to Catherine. I'm like, so much cigarette acting. And we had a good laugh.
And it's unnecessary. It doesn't add anything.
Well, actors love having business. They love having business to do, whether it's playing with their glasses or smoking a cigarette or, like making a sandwich. They like doing something with their hands. You'll notice it once you actually like think about it. So yeah, like a cigarette makes for good business while you're talking, but oh my God, does this one go
But
crazy?
it got to the point, it felt like it was a spoof. Like it felt like it was a Naked Gun movie or something where just everyone's, deliberately smoking, and like you can picture this like a room just filling with smoke. It's dumb. It's so, yeah, I hated it, that aspect of it. Absolutely hate. I mean, I hate smoking anyway, but it's never bothered me in movies before. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And particularly a movie set in this era where, yes, a lot of people smoked all the time, but it was egregious and over the top. It was just so stupid.
Yeah. I feel like they watched The Shining and they saw Shelley Duvall's cigarette ash, and they went, we can beat
We
it.
can beat that.
Yeah, we can beat that. Well, let me start this way. Is last night I felt very much like you did, where this felt like homework. You and I think, you basically said everything in my brain as far as leading up to this. The first movie I think is well made. I feel like you might have put some words in my mouth. It happens all the time. It's okay. I never said I disliked the first movie. I never said it was a bad movie. I said it is a good movie. It is a well-made movie. It is a well-acted movie. That's just not for me because I never feel like I'm watching the Joker. That's always been my take on the first movie. I've still only ever seen it the once in the theater. I was going to rewatch it before this one, and then as it got closer and closer, my time to watch anything fun is so limited as it is that I was like, I don't want to commit an evening after Harley falls asleep to watching Joker. I just don't. I'm like, I remember enough. It's fine. My memory's pretty good. I'm not that old yet. And so I did not rewatch the first. So yeah, I've still only ever seen it the one time. But I don't dislike that movie, and I've never talked bad about that movie. I just said it's not for me, and it's not Joker. It's a character drama about someone with mental illness that they slapped the name Joker on so they could sell it. Fair enough. But leading up to this, like you said, the inclusion of Gaga as Harley, that's brilliant. That's inspired. It's just, a great, exciting choice. Them talking about being a musical and really doing something weird and different with it, that excited me. I was like, well, cool. Like, we're not just going to get a rehash of the first. They're doing some interesting new things with the sequel. Cool. Like you said, they had my interest, but not my excitement. And then going into last night, that excitement really had died down based on the reactions and responses. And I can brush off a lot of reactions. Come on. I'm the guy who went to see BVS and went up and like, I don't know what you guys thought. I liked it. Right. So I can go in and not let other people's reactions temper my opinion. But there were many people who are incredibly reasonable people who aren't even like within the geek movie podcasting letterbox space, just friends who went and saw it, and their reactions that felt very honest. I was like, oh, damn. Like, these aren't the people who spend all their time doing what we do. And they came out and they're like, oh my God, did it suck? I'll just put it out there. And I was like, oh shit, really? Oh my God. And mostly going into it, I was morbidly curious. I'm like, what did they do to get such a visceral reaction from people? What did they do? So I was kind of curious about that. And then last night, Catherine and I go out to see the movie because Catherine's mom is now here while we're waiting for the baby. And so we had a night where we didn't have to pay for a babysitter. That was exciting. And if it weren't for this podcast, we might have gone to see The Wild Robot. Because I keep hearing how good that is.
Which in that, I thought when I first saw the trailer for that, I'm like, this is just like a Wall-E ripoff. What the hell? And people are raving about it.
Yeah. But I'm like, no, gotta go see Joker. And at this point, I was morbidly curious as to what was making people hate it so much. And then we get to the theater, and we had bought the Dolby. We had good seats in the Dolby theater, and we go in, and they go, the Dolby theater is broken. And we're like, oh, and they're like, so you can get a refund or we can book you for another showing. And so we stood there being like, okay, well, what's the next showing? And oh, there's another one in 20 minutes, but the seats are all taken up. And we eventually settle on one that's like an hour and a half away where we're like, well, we're not paying for a babysitter. But I was like, the universe gave us the out. It broke the theater for us. And I was like, do I take the hint? And then, I'm sorry, guys. Sorry for the long story. And then, you know, we wander around for a while, just killing time. We come back to the theater. We stop in the restroom. She might kill me for saying this. Catherine's taking too long in the restroom. I was like, oh my God, is she going into labor? Like, are we about to miss this movie because she goes into labor? She did not go into labor. And then in the movie, while we're watching the movie, she's having like contractions, which is normal for, you know, weeks and weeks before the baby is born. And the whole time I'm like, do we have to leave? Like, are we going to not finish this movie?
Can we please leave?
And again, I'm like, I feel like the universe was like, you can leave. It's okay. You can. But I stayed and the baby did not come. So it's all good. But yeah, this the whole time I'm like, what a great story that would be, though, is I've never seen the ending of Joker 2 because we had a baby. But
to be
that's
fair,
not-
I've spent long times in the bathroom too where it felt like I was in labor. So, you know.
hey,
cut us
haven't
some
we
slack.
all?
Yeah.
Haven't we all? And so anyway, the point is like, this ended up being like a hard fought movie to see after all was said and done. But we did. We saw the whole damn thing. And I will agree with something both of you said is for the first chunk of it. I don't know if it was all at the same spot, but I would say for the first, I'd even say 45 minutes, I was into it.
Yeah.
I was like, I know what you're putting down. You're doing what you said you were going to do. You're making a sequel to the first one. You're introducing this very different version of Harley Quinn, and you're making it a musical. You're doing all the things you said you were going to do, and that's fine. You're taking big swings. You're doing your thing. I support you. And so I was enjoying it. I wouldn't say loving it, but I was enjoying it well enough. I was like, okay, you know, I'm cool. And then, yeah, probably around the 45-minute mark, I was like, oh, you've got nothing else. You have nothing else in your bag ready to show us. We're just going to keep doing this. And then I checked out because the whole movie spends 2 hours and 18 minutes spinning its wheels, going nowhere. And that for me was the biggest sin is a lot of people are out there hating the movie and I don't know why. Are they hating it because it's a musical? Are they hating it because I don't know. I don't know why they're hating it. Like, but I've seen speculation of like, oh, well, people hate it because it's a musical. And I'm like, well, no, they've always said it was going to be a musical. They put it in the trailer. That's not a problem.
I don't think the mainstream really knew, like people like us knew, but I don't think the mainstream really knew that it was a full-on musical.
I don't know. But again, I didn't dislike it because it was a musical. In fact, I think I would have liked it more had it been a little more committed to being a musical.
Actually, I don't disagree with that.
100%.
Because the little flourishes they did with the musical stuff was the stuff I liked the most because it was the most interesting and the most different. But it's almost like they got a little gun shy of that aspect. And so some of it got cut back. And so you end up with this really weird movie where tonally it is a sequel to the first one. It feels like it picked up right where the first one left off. But now they're singing. But then when they go into like the cool dream sequences, they can't wait to get out of them, which I thought was so odd. I was like, no, this is why we're here. But again, for me, the cardinal sin is nothing happens in this movie. Nothing. Even when something does happen, nothing happens. And I'll explain that when we get into spoilers. Because every time you think something's about to change, something's about to happen, the movie takes one step back and we're right back where we started and nothing changes. So the movie just spins its wheels. And I'm like, if you're not going anywhere, why are we here? And the word I came out going, this is pointless. There was no point to this movie whatsoever.
Can you tell the story about the guy at the end of the session?
So the movie ends, and first of all, the theater, you know, Saturday night, it was a 9 p.m. showing. But even so, our theater was like, I'd say 80% empty. And
Your theater was better off than mine.
but you went at noon on a work day, so I was kind of willing to give that a pass. Like, you know, middle of day on a work day, I'm like, you know, not everybody's out to do that. But on a Saturday night, I was like, why is it so quiet? But the movie ends and everybody just gets up and gets out, except this dude behind me gets up and he stands up. He's like, what a waste of my time. And I stood up too. And he looked at me and he goes, am I right? And I just kind of was like, yeah, that's fair.
At the
'Cause
end of
that's
my
what-
session, Maddie was like, "Is there a post-credit scene?" I'm like, there wouldn't be." I said, "But I don't care. We're going. Like, I don't care if there is or there isn't. I'm not sticking around to find out."
So not only does it wear out its welcome, it just I don't buy into the conspiracy theory that I'm already seeing of being like, oh, Todd Phillips made it bad on purpose. I don't buy that. I don't agree with that.
Why would he do that?
You're gonna commit 2 years of your life to making a movie that you're gonna make bad on purpose. I don't buy it.
And before somebody says something about the massive payday he got up front, I'm sure he had a contractual thing on the back end of it too. So again, why would he do it?
Yeah. And because when you watch it, I'm like, no, like everybody's working hard. Nobody's phoning this in. Like it is shot well, just like the first film.
Yes, production value wise, I have no complaints whatsoever.
Yeah, Joaquin is still giving a very good performance. Gaga's giving a very good performance. Nobody's phoning this in. They are committed. They're not, they're not faking it. So I don't buy that at all. And again, I appreciate that when he was like, he's like, they really want a sequel and they're willing to pay for it. What can I do? It's almost like he's like, well, what if we make it a musical? What if we do this? And it's like, this is the best I got, but all right, let's go for it and see if it works, And so I don't know. It was maddening at a certain point because I think the only people this movie is for, to answer your question, the only people it's for are the people who absolutely, unequivocally love the first one.
Me?
And really, really, really wanted to see what happened to Arthur in prison and his court trial. And spoilers, nothing happened in prison or in his trial.
I don't think anyone wanted to see that.
I love the first movie. It's an A rating for me. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. I love it. I've only watched it probably 4 or 5 times total because I don't know how good it is for your mental health to sit down and watch a movie like that with any frequency, but I do like the movie. Enjoy is probably the wrong word, but I like and appreciate that movie a lot. So when they announced Gaga was coming in as Harley, it was going to be a musical. I'm like, they're just going to embrace the insanity of these two characters and just run right up the hill with it.
Yeah.
And they, spoilers, really don't.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, and this is not spoilery to say, I love Lady Gaga. I am a Lady Gaga fan. I think she's amazing. She's
one of the most talented human beings I've ever witnessed with my own eyes in my life.
Insanely talented. And like I said, when they got her to do this, I was like, bam, like that's amazing. Love it, love it, love it. They get her in this movie. Yes, it helps that she can sing. She doesn't get to do anything. She spends the whole movie doing nothing. All she does is hang out and tell Joker he's cool and he's the best and smokes. That's all she does. Like she doesn't get to do anything. And that's how do you get Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn and give her nothing to do?
And they even tried, I mean, we can't really get into it without getting into spoilers, but they tried to lay the background work for her. And I even appreciated that. It was done more through exposition than it was actually showing us. But the defense attorney's explaining to him, this is what she's really doing. I like that. I was with it to that point. But not long after that, it made that sharp turn. And I was like, okay, wait. What just happened here? And I just never recovered from it.
Yeah. I honestly, that's probably about the spot that I checked out too. I think you're right. Because, like they had...
So, I mean, this isn't giving too much away because it's not really spoilery per se, but from the moment that he fired his defense attorney on, I just never got back with it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the thing you were saying about who it was made for and stuff. Like, in saying what you were saying, Andy, it was made for people like me and Jamie. and you said how you saw people's reactions and stuff. I was seeing reactions from people who felt the same way I did about the first movie. And that's when I knew I was in trouble. I was like, okay, these guys liked the movie just like I did. And they hated this. And now that I've seen it, I can see why.
Yeah. Well, and again, and for the first 45 minutes when I was with it, or again, I'm just estimating, but I was taking it on its own terms. I was not disliking it because I expected it to be a Batman movie or something,
No. No.
I went in eyes wide open of being, of course it's a sequel to the first one. So I didn't have unrealistic expectations, which is why I was rolling with it for so long. But then again, at a certain point, I'm like, your tank is already empty. You've already showed us all the tricks you have to show us, and we have an hour and 20 minutes left. So let's get over the spoiler wall so we can speak freely. But yeah, I found it frustrating. I found it pointless. When it was over, I was like, well, I've only seen the first one once. I will only ever see this one once. And I'll say what I said on Letterboxd. They should have deleted this instead of Batgirl.
I'm not even going to fight you about that because I still
No.
desperately want to see that Batgirl movie.
You were not wrong.
So anyway, I have seen a little bit of people like trying to go, no, it's already a misunderstood masterpiece. And I'm like, listen, I'm not even going down that road with y'all. If you think so, God bless. But like you were saying, Jamie, I don't care enough to try to decode this movie because my life is too short.
Well, I mean, okay. So before we jump over the wall, just to address the smoking thing that you guys are talking about. So you guys are sitting there firing off about how annoying that was and it was so overdone and everything else. But is there some other meaning behind that? Like, we know smoking is bad for us, but we can't help but enjoy consuming this thing that's very bad for us. Is that literally the point of this entire movie? The crowds that are following him around and trying to get him freed and everything else, they know he's wrong. They know he's bad, but they can't help it. They're enjoying that aspect. You know, doing bad is good for them. They like it. So is that the smoking thing? Everybody just showing you where they stand with that. But I think I'm giving the movie too much credit there because I don't feel like that's really what they were doing. I feel like that's me reaching for something to try and justify what I watched. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought
that's just it. Right. Sorry.
I thought it could have been a bit of a nod to MAGA and stuff as well, but I'm like, is that too obvious? Is that what they're going for? Or is that something I'm projecting onto it? Like, yeah, it's a bit weird.
I have seen things where it's like there was a certain group of people who loved the first movie and they sided with Arthur and they thought he was the hero and, you know, that kind of thing. And I hate to use the word because it's already lost all meaning, but incels, quote unquote incels. And so I've seen like things about, well, in this movie, it is made abundantly clear that those people are in the wrong. And so like maybe that's part of the backlash, just people from the first film who felt like for some reason Arthur was a misunderstood hero. In this movie, it's like, no, that's not the case. And everybody who follows him is bad. That people, you know, might have taken that personally, but you know, yes, that's in this movie for sure, but like not a ton. And also, duh, you know, like of course, duh. Like, of course, the people who idolize the Joker are probably bad. Like, so if you needed to be told that, like, I worry. But that's I just thought that was like so interesting. I was like, well, sure, but if that's the point of this 2 hour and 18-minute movie, then boy, did you waste my time. I could have told you that before I walked into the theater.
All right, look, can we get over the wall? Because there's something I'm dying to get off my chest. I haven't discussed this with anybody yet.
Is it the end?
All right. Well, we're over the wall. So y'all, if you haven't seen Joker Folie Deux, we're getting over the wall. We're going to speak freely. Yeah. So anyway, the warning is out there. Spoilers are A-okay. Moving on.
All right, so we're over the wall, right?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Who blew up the hole in the wall in the courthouse?
One of his followers.
Who? Which one?
They don't even bother telling you.
Why? Because let me tell you what happened to me in that moment. That happened. Obviously, they Arthur and Lee kind of had their falling out by that point, and she's like, "No, I don't need any more of this." And you know, they give you that, you know, inclination that, or not inclination, the indication that she's going to kill herself because she's so disappointed that he's walked away from the Joker persona. And then, boom, this huge hole is in the wall. And my mind immediately reacted that as a, heck yeah, here we go. This this is where it happens. And it never goes anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was her. Did you think it was her? I thought it was her.
I
She's been
hoped
playing
it
the
was.
fire for the whole damn movie. It makes sense that she's the one that blows this enormous hole in the wall of the courthouse to get her man out and, you know, take him to go build this mountain she keeps talking about, that I still don't know what the hell that means. When she said that the first time, I'm like, are they building a mountain of dead bodies for their empire? Is that what she's talking about? What is this mountain? I want to know. I am along for the ride. Tell me. And they never tell me.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a reference to something I just didn't get. Like, is that from a song or something? I had no idea either.
It was in a song.
Okay. But yeah, I agree with you. I thought the same is, you know, yes, did she finally take matters into her own hands and blow up the building and get him out? And no, it was just one of his random followers. And they don't even bother showing who or why or how, because she had already quit him by that point, which is so weird. But that goes back to my point of like, she doesn't do anything. Like she's on the outside. He's on the inside. I thought for sure, again, my expectations were realistic. I did not think he was going to become the clown prince of crime and she was going to put on the jester's outfit. I didn't think any of that was going to happen. But what I did think is that he's on trial. She's a free woman. She is coming to the trial and she's going to orchestrate something in the trial to either help him get out or to flip the trial and put him in charge. That was what I was expecting. Essentially, he ends up putting Gotham on trial. Like, she goes in, sabotages something. I would have been on board for that because, you know what? Then something would have happened. None of that happens. She just shows up and sits in the front row. There's the moment where she finally puts on like the red and the makeup. And it's a great moment where she's walking up the steps of the courthouse. She looks amazing. I love it. What happens? She walks in, she sits down. He starts saying, I'm not really Joker, I'm Arthur. She gets up and she leaves. That's it. That was her big triumphant becoming Harley Quinn moment. Is she sits in the front row, she gets up, she leaves. The end. Nothing happened. And then even when something does happen, finally, I mean, I knew that by the time the courthouse blew up, we were in the home stretch because I have a good understanding of how time works. I'm like, we've got to be at about 2 hours right now. It blows up. I'm like, there's not much left. So I know that we're almost done. But, well, hell yeah, okay, explosive finale. Something happens here. He gets out. Something's going to happen. Nope, he gets picked up by some of his followers. He finds Lee. She's like, no, man, we're done. He gets picked up again, back in jail. Thank God we did that. Thank goodness. Nothing happened. It was the biggest event of the movie, and we went right back to square one. Nothing happened. No point. No reason for it.
Mm-hmm. You're not wrong. I'm not even going to contest it.
So it's just repeat of the same beats over and over and over again. And I think Gaga's giving it her all. And I love her, but she never gets to go Harley Quinn in this. Not even this movie's version of Harley Quinn. She never gets to do that. And it's like, then why are we here?
You know, I always try to temper some expectations, you know, because I too often am a victim of my own hype. But yes, going into this movie, I did fully anticipate at some point they were going to be Joker and Harley causing havoc in the streets together. Even if it was only for that last part of the movie and they both went out in a blaze of glory, at least it would have delivered that moment of them
like a
being
Bonnie
this deranged couple in love.
Yeah. I would have loved that.
And instead, I walk out of there going, this was a really lesser version of Natural Born Killers. Because at least Natural Born Killers, they were out causing this havoc together. And they were this psychotic couple in love that were victims of their own circumstances in life. And, you know, you feel sorry for them in that regard, but it doesn't excuse their actions. But some people don't understand that. So they're glorifying them, you know, in the streets. I mean, it's kind of that same story. It just doesn't have nearly the impact that Natural Born Killers have.
Well, let me say something nice. I thought the animated intro was a ton of fun.
Yes. I thought that was cool, the Looney Tunes intro.
Yeah, it was random. It was crazy. Like, yes, more of that. Like, I was into that. And my favorite parts were some of those fantasy musical sequences. Like the cool rooftop with the Arkham Hotel where they're dancing on the rooftop. Or there's one later on where she's like in a wedding dress and there's like this kind of glowing walkway up to him. those moments were cool. Even like the 70s
The
Sonny
Tonight
and
Show.
Cher
Yeah.
show takeoff
Yeah.
thing. Those were cool because they were pretty to look at, they were imaginative, they were interesting. But the issue is even though those were cool, they felt like they ended as quickly as they began.
Yes.
And that's where I feel like the movie was a little strangely gun shy on stuff like that, where I was like, well, if you're going to do this, commit, And so when they finally cut to that part with them on the roof, I'd seen that in the trailer. I thought it looked lovely. I was excited about that. And I was like, all right, cool, here we go. And then 30 seconds later, it's over. And I was like, oh, that was it? That was all we get of that? Okay, then. And that happens constantly throughout the movie.
I mean, for a movie that's got Phoenix's Joker in it, that, I from the second the credits rolled in that first movie, I'm like, give him the Oscar. Like, I could not take my eyes off him in that first movie. He was fantastic and deserved every accolade that he got for it. And, the fact that, again, they've got Lady Gaga playing Harley Quinn. The fact that my favorite character in this movie was Brendan Gleeson's Arkham guard, that says a lot, because he shouldn't be my favorite character. I should be focused on the other two, and I just didn't care.
Again, I have no complaints in that department. I think Catherine Keener as the defense attorney was great.
She was good too.
I'm a fan. I love her. The fact that they pretty much brought every surviving person from the first movie back in some capacity or another, obviously two pretty notable ones being the Waynes never showed up, but you had Zazie Beetz back. You had the Puddles back.
Puddles, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he
was
had
really
all
good.
of
His scene was really good.
Yeah, I agree. But, even, that was the point where the movie was really starting to lose its grip on me. I was really quite taken with the movie to that point. He fires her. He wants to defend himself. It's like, okay, they're going to embrace it now. From the trailers at some point he's going to be in the courtroom with the Joker makeup and the suit. And sure enough, he shows up with it. And here's the judge giving him the warning. I'll allow you. I can't tell you how to dress when you're doing this, but I'm warning you, don't turn this into a mockery or a circus or whatever. And it's like, he's going to act up.
And he proceeds to speak in an accent the whole time. It's like,
I was going to say, all he's doing is he's impersonating the chicken lawyer from Futurama for 20 minutes.
And the judge never says anything.
Well, and yes, and that drove me nuts because the judge literally starts with, I will not allow you to turn this courtroom into a circus. And then he just sits there quietly while Arthur Fleck goes off the rails. And I'm like, no judge would allow this kind of bullshit.
No. Yeah.
And again, I know it's, it's a movie, but there was so much in the trial that was like so detached from reality that I was like, this is like, I can't even get on board with this, because the logical part of my brain is like, this questioning and this dialogue would not be allowed to continue any place on earth.
No. Did either of you two think during the trial stuff, particularly when he became his own defense counsel, whatever it's called, did you think that maybe at some point he was going to lose his shit and attack Harvey Dent and like maybe stab him in the face a bit?
I thought something might have happened that way, and I also feel like during the explosion, Harvey Dent could have been injured at that point.
I thought
they pan across, and you do see that like one half of his face. It's minor, but one half of his face is scarred.
Oh, really? I didn't even see it.
There's just a few little cuts, but it's just on one side of his face.
Okay.
See, I didn't see enough of it to think to myself, oh yeah, he's Two-Face now.
Yeah, it was very, very, very subtle. But yeah, I was just waiting when Arthur was doing his ranting and raving, as when he was taking care of himself. I'm like, Dent's going to say something here and he's going to lose his shit and just attack him. But no, that didn't happen either.
Well, that's just it. At a certain point, yes, I expected him to go mad in the courthouse. And again, then to have Harley lock the doors or something, or steal the guard's gun, or I don't know. And then, to essentially have quote unquote Joker cause chaos in the courtroom in some way. But no, he just asks a couple stupid questions, goes in and out of the chicken lawyer voice, and is like, well, the defense rests. Like nothing happens. Nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's maddening. It's maddening. Because you just start seeing it. I'm like, oh, they're not going to do anything, are they? They're really not going to do anything.
Which, sometimes I feel like a movie purposely lulls you. Like they're trying to bait you into letting your guard down. And then they give you that moment where the big shift happens. Or something changes. And that, again, I expected that explosion for him to get up and see her standing in that rubble with her hand out like, come on, come with me. I'm getting you out of here.
Mm.
Or, him to walk out on the street and she's in a car waiting for him. Something. But no.
No, and then when he finds her on the stairway, she had changed her look, which there's footage in the trailer of her like that in an elevator that's not in the movie. So something in there got lost. And then, it's like, he's like, we can run away together. And she's like, nope, you killed it. Sorry. And that's it. And then he gets picked up by the
Where did she jump from holding a loaded gun to her head? And then the next second she's had a complete makeover and embraced
and sitting on
the look of Harley Quinn even more.
Yeah.
And there's no joke. Like,
there's a missing piece there. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And was she lying about being pregnant? Because I feel like that conversation only came up one time anywhere in the film.
Yeah.
How is she getting into these places to see him?
Just
like,
going on the
said, like, a guard let me in, but like into his cell and able to screw him? Like,
I will say this, for the first half of the movie, I didn't think she existed. I thought she was just in his head, because the first movie made it very clear that like the relationship with Zazie Beetz was all in his head. So I really thought that, because I noticed for the first half of the movie, no one else acknowledged her. But, and just when I thought that, I'm like, oh no, is she not real? Just because her showing up in solitary is super weird and convenient and whatever. But then just after that, the defense attorney starts talking about Lee, and then they have a scene together, and I was like, okay, I guess she's real. So there's so much for that theory.
But yeah, like, it's the thing, how does she get into solitary? Like, she just, a guard let me in. It's like, that wouldn't happen. And particularly if they know that you're just as unhinged as he is. Like,
well, I mean, they established that she comes from money and she's rich. So money talks, bullshit walks. If she slipped the guard a couple $100 to get in there, I bet you he said, yeah, just make it quick.
Yeah, could be. But I mean, even so, if we're going to go back a minute, again, the moment I thought that the movie was going to finally sort of kick off is when they're in the music room and she's like, let's get out of here. And he goes, no, we'll get in trouble or whatever. And so she sets the fire and it causes sort of this escape. And I was like, okay, all right, now something's going to happen. And then they get caught. He gets thrown into solitary. Never mind.
So what do we think of the ending?
Okay, first of all, I got to say this about the ending. The weekend of the release, I'm seeing all this clickbait of like the ending of Joker, Folie Deux, explained. I was like, if you need it explained to you, you don't deserve to know.
Yeah,
I'm so annoyed. I'm like, if you don't get it, then forget it, you know? Well, then I will say, here's my hot take. I liked the ending.
Because it put an end to it?
Well,
No, because it opened the door.
Yeah.
Well, because, I mean, it's essentially what after the first movie, I'm like, yeah, it's a good movie. I don't feel like I was ever watching the Joker. I never felt like Joaquin Phoenix was playing the Joker. He was playing a character called Arthur Fleck, who occasionally puts on clown makeup. And so I remember after the first movie, there was fan theories of like, well, he's not the Joker. He inspires the Joker. And this essentially confirms that, is he inspires the real Joker, the Joker who will go up against Batman someday. That was never going to be Arthur Fleck. It's this other guy. So I actually kind of liked that. I saw it coming a mile away.
Well, the fact that they focused on him so much when they were in the TV room when he was a nobody character, is kind of an indicator of, hey, this guy here, remember this face because we're coming back to him later.
Well, that's just it. Is obviously they focus on him, and I was like, okay. And I thought at that point I didn't realize who he would be or how that would go. But
No, definitely not. But when there's a deliberate pause,
yes,
and it holds on him
Mm.
for way longer than it needs to for just panning the camera around a room, getting reaction shots.
Right. And then when it didn't come back to him, and then you see him again at the end, that's when I went, oh. And then he said, oh, yeah, Arthur. And I was like, oh, I know where this is going because I've seen enough prison movies to know when someone's about to get shivved. And sure enough, I knew
Shank.
that was...
Shank,
Oh,
remember, shiv is the device, shank is the action.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that. But anyway,
my question with that is, do you think that the guard was in on it? Like he was getting him away from the crowd so old mate could shank him? Because just like, Arthur, you have a visitor, and then the guard keeps walking, and Arthur's there for a good chunk of time before he gets shanked. The guard never comes back around to be like, hey, where the hell are you? Like, come on. Like, was that a setup? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the question I have is like, was the guard deliberately getting him away from the crowd so he could get shanked?
I just like how matter-of-factly you're saying got shanked. That makes me laugh. I didn't even think of that. I took it as it was presented. I thought there really was someone out there, and the movie just wanted to like leave us hanging as to who it was. Was it Harley? Was it the defense attorney who was out there waiting for him? But we'll never know because he never made it. But you're making a valid point that, you know, we know that there was no love there with the guards, so it's certainly possible. But usually, I don't know. Like, I don't know if a guard would be like, "Oh, you want to shank Arthur? Okay, let's figure this out." You know.
Hmm. And then he gives it. Is it a Glasgow smile that they call it, where he, you know, cuts his mouth into the.
Oh, is that what it's called? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I think so.
but yes, you know, like he obviously has this psychopathic tendency. He has a certain fixation on Arthur / Joker. He's disappointed in him for giving up being Joker, and so so he kills him and takes over, and then like you hear him cutting the smile even if you don't see it, and it's like, to me that's pretty clear.
Mm. Yeah, it's called a Glasgow smile. I just did a quick
Okay.
Google. Not sure why,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what it's called.
All right. But yeah, I didn't mind that as a final note to go out on, because again, it sort of confirms this theory that was around since the first film of Arthur Fleck isn't the Joker, he's the precursor.
Mm.
But I don't know, what do you guys think? I mean, you can take it any direction from there and run with it if you want. But, you know, now you can directly correlate this with some other Batman movie, whether it be, well, I mean, at this point, the one that they established in the Reeves Batman movies is way too young to be this guy. So I don't know. I feel like it was so vague, like it was done in the sense that they wanted to keep it open-ended enough where people could devise their own theories, or they could tie it to a Batman movie in some way. I'll be quite frank. I was so checked out by that point, I didn't care. I was barely paying attention to it. I had no idea he was cutting on himself till you guys just said it. Like, well, I knew he was doing something back there, but I was like, you know, I was resting my chin on my fist, like, really, this is how we're going to end this movie, these two movies. This is how it goes out. So, like, I see him doing stuff. Like, I get they're trying to indicate, but I wasn't paying attention specifically to his actions at that point.
But did you at least figure out that it was supposed to be the quote unquote real Joker?
I realized that option was there. Mm-hmm. I just wasn't sure in that moment I was accepting it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway from it was like, well, Todd Phillips has said in how many interviews that he never wanted to make a sequel. As it's just like, well, this is him saying, I'm definitely not making a third one.
Yeah.
But now the door's open for somebody else to do it if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Judging by the box office returns on this one, this Joker's going to be dead on arrival.
I don't think people were invested. I mean, that, as you said, he was a nothing character. Like, it was just a sort of, I think, give it that little nod. But it's also, to me, it was an ending. It was a proper ending.
Yeah,
like,
I think so too.
There's no more of these movies. Phoenix is done. Peace out.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's exactly what it was. I think that's the reason they did not hire a recognizable actor for that role,
Mm.
is because it's not about who he is. It's not about setting him up to take the mantle of the franchise. It's just about, this is how the story ends. Is Arthur Fleck inspired the man who would eventually go on to be the Joker and take on Batman. And
Except for now you can have Gaga come back in 20 years for the Joker's daughter movie.
see,
Because that's what everybody wants. 'Cause that was a great character.
But I think that even Phillips said recently, like, before the movie came out, is all these interviews, is he said something to the effect of like, oh yeah, if Joaquin's Joker ever met Batman, he would like pee his pants and run away.
Mm.
And so when Phillips was saying that before the movie even came out, I'm like, so even you're even saying he's not the Joker, right? Like, you're even saying that in so many words.
It was certainly something that I watched.
It was a thing that they made for
And honestly,
$200 million.
where did that
I do not see. I mean, account for the 60 for the staff salary.
Right.
I don't see the other $140 million on this screen.
Well,
No,
100 was cigarettes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like, you know what? Like, and we talked about it a little bit, amongst friends, is Phillips, Joaquin, and Gaga, they all got 20 million. Good for them. They deserve it. Enjoy your islands. But even then, you could have made this movie with 40 and have a budget of 100. Because that's what it looks like.
It doesn't look any different to the first one.
Well, and it all takes place in Arkham and in the courtroom. That's it. They don't go anywhere. They go back to the stairs for that quick scene at the end. And we were lied to that Joker and Harley were going to dance on those stairs. There's footage of them dancing on the courtroom stairs in the trailer. Did that happen in the movie and I blinked?
I don't
remember seeing that.
So, okay, so that might have just been something else that was just in the trailer. But yeah, like, no, they rarely even go outdoors. So what the hell just spend it on? And again, even those couple fanciful stylized sets for the dream sequences, they were cool. They did not cost millions of dollars, So, this is another movie.
I mean,
that
what were
might
there?
have been...
There 4 of them? If
Yeah.
they were $5 million a piece, there's 20 million. And
Yeah,
I don't believe for a second they were $5 million a piece.
No. Nope. So yeah, this is a movie that also feels like maybe it was a some sort of Ponzi scheme where they were laundering money from WB. And you know what? I don't care. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy than Zaslav.
And that's the thing. I've said it in a few messages. I said it in my review on Letterboxd. Like, I would like to think in some world that Warner Brothers learns the right lesson from this of like, shit, not everything needs to have a sequel. Not everything needs to be a franchise. You know what? That first Joker movie was lightning in a bottle. It was less than 100 million, wasn't it? It was like a really low
65.
budget. Yeah, 65. It made over $1 billion. Yay us. Academy Awards, recognition, all the rest of it. That's it. What else can we do? Let's find, what's a new thing we can do now? Nah. No, we want another one of those because it made money. But it's not meant to have a sequel. It's a set. No, want another one. What do you got? Here's all the money in the world. And it's shit. And to me, honestly, it sullies the first movie. They've ruined it. And it's just like, they won't learn that lesson.
Listen, that might be going too far. Weekend at Bernie's 2 did not ruin Weekend at Bernie's. That movie remains a classic and no one can ever change that. Well, here's how boneheaded they are. Because do you remember when DC Studios was kind of starting to take shape? And I don't know if it was right before when James Gunn took the job, but they wanted Todd Phillips to take the job because Joker made $1 billion.
Ugh.
And I was like, you really wanted the guy who made Joker. Love that movie or hate it or anything in between, but that's the template you want to use for a shared DC universe. Really? Mm-hmm. Just because it made $1 billion. What are y'all smoking?
And when I say it sullies the first one, like, to me, like, I liked the ambiguity of the ending of the first one of like, shit, was that all in his head? Like, what did that actually happen? Like, what? I liked that you could make up your own mind, or, you know, you could believe whatever you wanted, and either way could be right. You know, the argument that it was all in his head is like, you know, you wouldn't get it, whatever. That makes sense. The fact that it really happened and he's just ending up there talking to a psychologist, that makes sense too. But now I know what happens next, and what happens next is, well, like you said, nothing. But what happens next was, like I said, was shit. It's
That's just
so disappointing. So why do I really ever need to revisit the first one ever again? Because now I know what happens next, and I don't like it.
Well, and what happens next, like, is nothing. If there had been a true sequel where Arthur escapes with Harley and they do whatever they're going to do, they go on a crime spree, they create chaos, they inspire new hordes of disgruntled Gothamites, whatever they end up doing, if that was the story, at least something that happens next is kind of interesting. This is the middle part between two sequels that you don't want to see because nothing happens.
Mm.
And this is WB's most expensive movie of the year.
They're going to lose money.
Yeah, they are.
They already lost money.
It's like, and it's funny because was kind of nice is like, I didn't have a dog in the fight. So like, as I was watching this crash and burn all weekend, I didn't take glee in it. It's, you know, I don't have no grudge against this team. I have no grudge against the first film. I just thought it was fascinating to watch. But it was kind of nice to not be invested one way or another and to just be like, wow, how can so many things go wrong? So I was just watching it from a place of curiosity as opposed to, you know, I wasn't sad for it. I wasn't happy for it. I just was like, holy crap, who'd have seen this coming 2 months ago? Mm-hmm. Because that's what's crazy is like, that first trailer I thought was incredibly well received, and I even really liked it myself. And then the second trailer, everyone was like, eh. And then the buzz just died.
I honestly don't know if I ever saw a second trailer for it.
Yeah, there was. And it was like fine, but kind of more of the same. And the buzz just sort of died, and it was just crazy. And then it was tracking for $75 million opening, which would have been perfectly respectable. You know, like it would have been unrealistic to expect it to match or exceed the first one. The first one, like you said, Brendan, lightning in a bottle. You can't expect that result again, but a $75 million opening would have been perfectly respectable for this movie, the sequel. And then it went down to between 50 and 65. And now Sunday night, they're saying 40. But when the actuals come in tomorrow, it sounds like it might be more like 38, 39. And so,
and week 2 is going to have a probably more than 60% drop off of that.
Yeah.
Probably
this will be on digital
80 to 85% drop.
Oh, it's going to have a massive drop because it's had a massive drop all weekend to where I went at 9:00 on a Saturday night and sat in a mostly empty theater. The word of mouth has been toxic. The cinema score was a D.
Which is
that blew my mind because when everyone's like B is a bad cinema score, and I'm like, holy shit, this got a
I've
D?
never seen a D cinema score for a mainstream movie before, ever.
It is allegedly the lowest cinema score for any comic book movie ever. So,
look, I will say this: the one good thing to come out of this whole Joker 2. Well, schmozzle, I guess you could call it, but the whole thing is
schmozzle.
Like, yeah, anyway.
Haas and Pfeffer Incorporated.
That's it, Haas and Pfeffer Incorporated. Do you know that, Brendan?
No.
Pour yourself a Pepsi, Andy, and I'll tell you all about it.
A schmozzle is like a nice way of saying, like, a big dumpster fire or whatever. Is the Lady Gaga companion album called Harlequin. Is fantastic. Honestly, save yourself the money. Don't go to the movies to see this. Buy or stream that album because it's great. It's Lady Gaga singing show tunes with a big band. It's really, really friggin' good.
All right. That's cool. I listened to the Joker song, and I'll be honest, didn't really do much for me.
Yeah, it didn't
It's
move
kind
me
of,
either
it's
way.
like the most, I guess, kind of like, not poppy's not the right word, but like it. To me, the best way I could explain it is kind of Gaga by way of Buble. Like
Yeah,
it's really her doing like big show tunes and stuff. Like just listen to the whole album. Like her version of like When the Saints Come Marching In and stuff is really, really good. It's a great album.
All right, I'll check it out because I do like her.
And I say that as someone who's not a massive like I said, I like her. I think she's a great artist. But I've never like bought her albums or whatever. But yeah, it's a really, really good album.
All right, great.
I listened to Lady Gaga so much when she was coming around the scene that I don't know how the twins were, probably 3 or 4, were running around the living room, the coffee table in the living room, just repeatedly yelling "disco stick."
Yeah.
And it was at that point I realized I should probably reel it back in.
Nah.
I think her Super Bowl performance is one of the best ones I've ever seen.
Have you never seen the Prince one? Because that's the best of all time. Bar none.
Actually, I have, but I mean, yeah, hers is up there. I thought hers was very, very good. Because I don't watch NFL, but every year I'll always check out the halftime show. And yeah, hers was, for me, one of my favorites. I thought it was fantastic.
That was that amazing one where she like jumps off the roof, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. That made me laugh so hard.
That must have been one of the Super Bowls I protested, so I never saw it.
It's like 2017.
Which would have been probably one of the years the Patriots went. And at one point, I swore I would never watch another Super Bowl with the Patriots again. So,
well, check it out on YouTube because their performance was really freaking good.
Well, and to that point, I want to say on the record, how dare you all waste Lady Gaga in this movie? How do you do that? How dare you?
Well, first things first, I've maintained since American Horror Story Hotel, she's as good of an actor as she is a singer.
Absolutely.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's
my point. Yeah.
You dropped a Brinks truck on her front doorstep. You've got her name attached to the name of a character that is very beloved in the public eye. It's a draw on its own at this point. And then, I mean, I'm trying to defend this movie, and I really can't because Andy's right. I mean, what does she do in this movie that's worthwhile of that moniker?
See, for me, after the first trailer for this movie, I was like, this is going to be so cool. Phoenix will win Best Actor for the first one, and Gaga will win Best Actress for the second one. That was my prediction. Yeah, nah. I don't think this movie is going to be mentioned at all come award season.
No, I mean, and that's what's so sad is, I mean, fortunately, I feel like she comes out unscathed. I don't think anybody is blaming her or even saying she did a bad job.
Said at the start, like the acting is really good. Like they're turning in really good performances. It's just that the movie as a whole is just not entertaining.
Yeah,
and as you said, it goes nowhere.
And ironically, they sing that's entertainment. But is it? Is it? Put in the Thor meme. Is it though? Well, let's wrap it up. I feel like we've said what we need to say.
Yeah.
Great. Let's do some final thoughts and some letter grades. That's right. I'll go first because I know. Again, this isn't one. So many of these movies that I'm like, I try to talk myself into liking. I really, really do. This isn't one of them. I'm just like, you know what? When it was over, I was like, no, I'm good. I know where I stand. It's fine. I never have to watch it again. What a waste of my time, to quote the gentleman at the end of my screening. What a waste of my time. Totally
made me laugh when you sent that message yesterday.
It was so funny. And because I'm like, you're not wrong, bro. It's so true. And it is so obvious that Todd Phillips was like, well, I didn't want to make a sequel. There was never a plan for one. I don't even really have a good idea for a sequel, but you're going to give me, the income of a small country to make one. I'll try to figure it out. And I have seen so many reviews and reactions where like, this was just so unnecessary. And it was so obvious that they just didn't know what they wanted to do. And so I come back to the same word. It was pointless. There's no need to watch this for any reason whatsoever. and I never will again. I'm giving it a D. Brendan.
Yeah, like I said before, skip the movie, listen to that Lady Gaga album. You'll have a much better time, and time not wasted either. Honestly, the only way I ever see this again is if Jess wants to watch it, and if she listens to this, I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I never see this again either. Yeah, I'm with you. It's like a D.
And I was between a D and a D plus, because I almost want to give it the plus for Gaga and for like the weird animation and stuff, but I don't know. Yeah, even that feels kind of generous to me. So anyway, Jamie, what about you?
Sometimes when I need a little help forming an opinion on a film, I'll go and read. I don't pay a lot of attention to critic reviews. I see a lot of, my acquaintances and friends out there, they're dropping opinions on it, and I'll try to use those to help formulate. But this is probably the biggest roast that I've seen on this movie. It's from a IndieWire movie critic by the name of David Ehrlich. And the opening line of this review on IMDb says, Phillips struggles to find a shape for his story without having a Scorsese classic to use as a template. So as Andy was talking, I didn't have a plan for a sequel. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Those words came back into my mind. Was he just too far out of his element for this? I don't know. All I can tell you is, even after discussing this for however long we've been talking about it at this point, I still really don't know what I think of it. There are certainly problems I have with this film. Don't get me wrong. I have issues with the film. I have criticisms of the film. But I also think that there are things to like about this film, which we've discussed a little bit as well. So I dropped this with the fullest disclaimer of, I reserve the right to change this after I've seen it once or twice more, because I do want to watch it again. I'm just not in a hurry to do it. When it's in the $4.99 bin on iTunes, I'll probably buy it. At that point, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll watch it with my wife on HBO Max, because surely it'll be on there within 45 days.
I think
and
it's
just
be real quick
at that point. But right now, because I literally can't make up my mind either way, I have to land right at a C, because there are positives, there are negatives. I don't know which one overtakes the other at this point. So I'm just literally landing smack dab in the middle. It's not because I feel like it's the grade it necessarily deserves, for better or worse. It's just all I can think to put on it right now, because I'm still processing it. And again, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. But, you guys seem to have a lot of convictions with where you're standing. So maybe I'm just trying to give it more than a fair chance at this point. Time will tell.
Okay. A C and 2 Ds for Joker, Folie, Deux. And how often is it that we're done talking about one of these new movies in less than 2 hours?
Not very.
I did say leaving the cinema yesterday, I turned to Maddie, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to say about this movie tomorrow, because it's just like, I walked out going, I saw it, I didn't like it, it was weird. Okay, let's do emails.
Yeah. I went to bed frustrated, where I was just like, what? Get a night out, and this is what I had to watch. Like, I was just annoyed.
I got a tip I can give you if you're ever feeling frustrated before you go to bed.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Just the tip, Brendan?
Got some advice, Ian. Yeah.
I'm sure you do. Well, Joker Folie, Deux. It's out there. Best of luck. It'll be on digital before you know it. So
Joker full of a deuce.
Yeah. So I think we have time to do a couple emails. So maybe, some of those would be kind of fun.
Are they Joker themed?
Probably not. But so let's do that. Let's check in with you, fine feathered figs. Let's crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox. It's time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
Darren. What is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
All right, first email here is from Carrie Vanderberg. It says, "Hey Andy and crew, I enjoyed the original script for the Batman '89 episode. It got me thinking about a possible idea for a future Holy BatCast. Since we never got Ben Affleck's solo Batman movie, what characters or story beats would you have liked to have seen in that film? You can make an episode where you, Jamie, and Brendan, plus any other participants, would create 3 of their most wanted villains or supporting characters, action sequences, or story beats that you would have wanted to see in Affleck's film or even in the Zack Snyder Justice League sequels. So the episode would be similar to a fan cast episode, but it would be more along the lines of, if we wrote the movie with Affleck, here's what we would include. Of course, it would have to follow the groundwork laid by Man of Steel, BVS, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, but there's still a lot of great possibilities to explore. Hopefully you like that idea. I think it would be a fun episode. All the best, and congrats to Andy on your growing family, Carrie." Thank you, Carrie. And actually, I think that could be a lot of fun. I don't know about you guys, like kind of a what if, what if we had been joining Affleck back when he was going to make a movie? And yeah, I'll put it on the list of potential episode ideas, Carrie, but I'd be down. Some of the more, random episodes, I'm into it. Next email is from Nathan Toy. It says, "Hey, Andy and friends. With the Joker sequel coming out, I was pondering a question and I was interested to get your takes. So ideally, with a comic book character, you'd get both a faithful aesthetic that you recognize while also the elements and actions of the character embodying the spirit of their core principles across mediums. However, some of the portrayals we've gotten lately tend to have only one of those two. For example, Reeves' Riddler is lacking the clear, recognizable aesthetic, but still having the core elements and spirit. While someone like Phoenix's Joker has a recognizable look, but doesn't really have the core elements or spirit to who the Joker is. He's almost an entirely different character. I also agree with your comments to that on regards to Harley in Caped Crusader. So my question is ultimately, which could you more easily live with? For me, I think I'd rather deal with the inconsistent aesthetic, but the characters still have the core element through lines. Sorry for the long email, and a huge congratulations to you and Catherine expecting another baby." Thanks, Nathan. And we're still expecting that baby, so we'll see, but I appreciate that. So interesting question. So if we're talking about portraying a favorite comic book character in film, they can either look like the character or they can act like the character. But if you had to sacrifice one, what would it be? Jamie?
I really have to lean toward acting like the character would be my preference. Because I find that no matter what, they almost all have some kind of a different aesthetic than what I'm accustomed to on a page or something like that. But as long as they're being who I know them as, or how I have it set in my mind that they should be, I usually don't have a huge issue with the aesthetic. But I'm also greedy, so I say, why the hell do I have to settle? Why can't I have both? But it really comes down to where the better story and the better writing is happening. So if you make a lot of hardcore changes to a character and they look right, but you wrote a terrific script and dialogue and everything for it, I probably roll with that, and the exact other way around. But my preference would be at the core the character to be the character versus look like.
Okay, Brendan?
See, I agree with Jamie, but then I also look at Paul Dano's Riddler and it just gives me the shits. I don't know, can't...
Well, see, I look at Thanos and I think he looks damn near perfect. But as we all know, I have huge issues with that shit.
And that's the thing. Can't there be a happy medium? Can't there be a bit of both?
Yes.
And
that's why I say, why do I have to choose?
And
why
that's what
I
I want. Yeah, there should. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I'm going to cheat like you guys and just say there's no reason I should have to choose. I feel like the Paul Dano Riddler is maybe not a great example because aesthetically, of course, he's not the Riddler at all. But I'd even argue personality-wise, he's not really the Riddler. He leaves puzzles, but that's kind of it. His personality is nothing like the Riddler we know. His motives are nothing like the Riddler we know. Many things have changed, both in his spirit and in his aesthetic. But I've often given the example of Two-Face in Batman Forever versus Two-Face in The Dark Knight. Two-Face in Batman Forever is right off the page, right? Like he looks exactly like Two-Face. I mean, he's pink. His face is pink instead of green, but whatever. But like he's very Two-Face. They give him the comics accurate origin story where he gets acid thrown on him in a courtroom. He isn't in a freaking lair that's split in two. Like he is Two-Face from the comics. Maybe not personality wise because he's so goofy, but he is technically very quote unquote accurate. And Two-Face in The Dark Knight, they make a lot of changes to what brings him into Two-Face and his backstory and how he gets scarred and all of that. But somehow they kept the core of that character. Because if you ask any Batman fan, which version do you prefer? Almost everybody's going to tell you they prefer the Dark Knight Two-Face, even though technically I would say it is a less accurate Two-Face than Forever. And so it goes to show, yes, you can change things, but you still have to somehow keep that spirit of the character. And I know that can be subjective, right? But I feel like Two-Face is a great example in The Dark Knight where you're like, no, that's still Two-Face, even though they changed some things around and they rewrote some stuff. It's still, in the end, very much him.
Yeah.
So, all right. Next email here is from Ron Messberger. It says, hey, BatCast family, hope you're doing well. Andy, I hope you and the lovely Catherine and the new Robin are thriving. Is Harley excited to have a partner in crime? After listening to your Penguin review, I got to thinking. You all seem indifferent to the Batman and Penguin. Would the changes that need to be made to make you excited and love this depiction be wholesale, or could some smaller changes be made? Thanks for the best podcast, Ron. Thanks, Ron. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words of me, Catherine, and Harley, and the new Robin on the way. We're doing good. Catherine just can't wait to not be pregnant anymore. She's reached that point. Is Harley excited? Sometimes. Sometimes she'll just ignore us. And sometimes she's like, yay, baby brother, and so we'll see how it goes. It's an interesting question. So the Batman universe, let's just call it that. Do you all feel it would have to be like a wholesale change for you to be totally on board? Or do you think some smaller tweaks could be made that would be enough to get you there? Jamie, I think you are the most there of the three of us. So let's start with you.
I really don't feel like a wholesale change is necessary because, I mean, it should be on record from the episode that we reviewed the film on and even subsequent episodes. I'm interested to see where this goes in the next installment or installments. I think the base is there for something very, very solid. And again, I really like the movie. I just don't love the movie. And there are things that I have problems with about the movie. Go back and listen to the episode if you want to know what they are. I'm not recapping them all tonight. But as I recall, at least me, if not all of us, in summary of it, said, I'm interested to see where they go from here. And I feel like the way that film ended, there's a lot of potential for it to develop into something that I would prefer. So, to me, the natural answer to the question is, yeah, I think minor tweaks are going to be fine. I don't need a revamp of the whole universe, another reboot, a different Batman, a different writer, director. I don't need that. I do need that. I need continuous Batman content in my life, of course. But as far as the Reeves universe is concerned, no, I want to see where it's going to naturally progress from here when it shows up in 2068 when they finally have it done.
All right. Brendan, what about you?
I mean, I think for me, it would have to be wholesale. Like, my issue with the whole thing from walking out of the cinema that first time seeing the Batman, which is almost 3 years ago, Christ, is like I didn't need a more, and I'll say that buzzword, grounded / realistic take on Batman after the Dark Knight trilogy. I didn't. We already had that, and it worked well. I don't need to see it even more removed from its roots, its comic book roots. Like, I don't. I have no interest in that. Maybe if the Dark Knight trilogy was 40 years ago or something, but it's still somewhat, recent. It's like less than 20 years. Yeah. Look, and in saying that, I mean, I know I wasn't on the episode, but like, I'm enjoying the Penguin series, and I think for me, it's because I thought Colin Farrell was the best part of that movie. And I like the show, but I like it. I guess it's gonna be weird. I like it because it's not about Batman. I'm liking it as sort of the crime, mob show that it is. But I do agree with Andy. Like, change his name to something else, and it not be set in Gotham, and it would be a good show, but nothing would have changed. But I am enjoying the show for whatever that's worth. Um, yeah, I just want, I really, really, really desperately want to see what Batman is going to be like in the James Gunn universe side of things, because I'm really not enjoying the fact that I'm not really excited about a new Batman movie coming out. And I should be, and I desperately, desperately want to be. But yeah, I just can't get there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan and I are very much on the same page on this. Do I think small changes could be made to make me more interested? Yes, I do. And honestly, that was kind of what I was hoping for after the Batman. Is I was like, you could, from where that movie ends, you could start making some adjustments and getting into something that I'd be a little more into. But based on the Penguin, they have no interest in doing that, and they have just committed to this real world, non-comic book, version of the world. And so, like, small changes could make me more interested, but I don't think small changes could ever make me fully love it. I think to get totally psyched, like you were saying, Brendan, I would just need a new version. I think that the ship has sailed on this version for me to ever really love it. And like you said, that just makes me sad. How sad am I that the current live action Batman version is one that I can't get excited about? That bums me out.
I was thinking about it the other day, and we haven't had a Batman movie with Batman in his prime since 1997. Because all of the first two movies of the Dark Knight trilogy, he was, wasn't there yet. Like, Batman Begins obviously was, very, very new, new to the role. Dark Knight, he still really didn't have all this stuff figured out yet. And then he quits for however long, was it 7 years or something? And then comes back and he's beyond it physically. So in that whole trilogy, we never ever got to see Batman in his prime. And then Affleck went completely in the other direction, where he's old and past it and, arsehole Batman. And then this guy's back to being a newbie again. I mean, it's year 2, but he's still not Batman in his prime.
He's still not very good at being Batman.
No.
So no, he's definitely not in his prime.
So when are we going to get Batman being fucking Batman? You know what I mean? Like, the fact that the most comic accurate Batman we've had since 1997 is Affleck because of The Dark Knight Returns, that, that's a bit sad too. Like, why is people against just giving us a 30-something Batman, or, early 40s, whatever, who's good at his job? That's what I want to see. I want to see Batman being Batman and taking down comic book villains. I don't know why that assignment is so hard to achieve. I really don't.
We're living in a world where we've had 2 Joker movies where we're told, well, these, it's the Joker and Harley, but don't worry, we're changing everything. So don't think of him as the Joker and Harley you know and love. We're changing it all. And then we've got a Penguin series where everybody tells you, well, to enjoy it, you've got to forget that it's based on Batman or the Penguin. The best way to enjoy this Penguin series is to just think of it as a crime series from HBO. Don't think of it as a Batman-centric or a Penguin series. What's going on here? What world are we living in? How hard is this, guys?
Marvel made a very, I mean, obviously, I know that it's, fallen on some leaner times recently, but, phase 1, phase 2 and stuff, they made the comic book characters look like the comic book characters and do comic booky things. And they made fucking bank doing it. Like, I don't understand why we can't just get that. And I'm really hoping that's what Gunn will give us. When it comes to Batman, is just a Batman who looks like Batman in a great costume that isn't black rubber, that looks like he's come off a comic book page, and just gives us a Batman who is good at his job and not either too young to do it properly or too old to do it properly. It boggles my mind. It really does.
Yeah. And Jamie's just quietly sitting over there.
No, I mean, you guys aren't. You brought up the thing about the Joker and Harley, but it's not really Joker and Harley. So I started thinking, Harley Quinn has been a thing for what, 32 years now, roughly?
Yeah, 92.
Yep.
We started getting Harley on a screen in 2016. So, I mean, we're bloody near a decade into live action Harley on a movie screen. What do we have? 4 minutes of her and Joker together on a screen?
Yeah.
So what's wrong with a 35-ish Batman chasing after Harley and Joker who are terrorizing a city? I know it's popular nowadays to, Harley's left the abusive Joker behind, and I get that, and I support that, and I'm fine with it. But for the movie-going audience, they've never really experienced the original relationship of Joker and Harley.
Mm-hmm.
People who grew up with the animated series or read the comics, they've got plenty of it. But people who are just moviegoers, they've got about 4 minutes of it, and they didn't really care for the aesthetics of that
in a movie that they
tattoos on
really
faces
see.
and everything else.
Well, and
I'm not jumping down David Ayer's throat about that, because we all at this point are well aware pretty much what that movie should have been instead of what we got. But you get my point. We don't get a lot of proper characters and relationships when it comes to these heroes. And again, that goes back to the question we had a minute ago. Do we prefer the aesthetic, or do we prefer, the characters at the core? Because I feel like the limited amount of screen time that they shared, I feel like Joker and Harley in Suicide Squad from 2016, I feel like they didn't necessarily look the way that I would prefer that they look, but it felt like Joker and Harley.
Yeah. Well, and what I was going to say is the irony is for that film, in reshoots, they changed that relationship to make it less abusive, because there were already murmurs of controversy of somehow glorifying the abusive relationship. So they changed it. So in the final cut, she is much more of a willing participant. They give her more agency. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And this is, and like you said, Harley in animation, Harley in comics, I'm fine that she's moved on. She's become an anti-hero. She's got a relationship with Ivy. There's room for all of it. But I also like Harley and Joker being a pair. And if you don't want to glorify an abusive relationship, I'm with you. I support that. Don't glorify an abusive relationship. There's no reason you can't make them partners in crime.
No.
And that could still be a lot of fun. And then, you know what? And then, have the Joker abandon her to save his ass. Like, for sure. You don't have to, you can tweak it a little, but still give us Joker and Harley together.
Yeah. And I don't feel like the animated series ever glorified any abuse that he gave her. But yeah, clearly his eye takes
Joker's a
precedence over
bad
hers.
guy. I get the whole, glorifying and that kind of shit, but he's a bad person. He would do something like that. You know what I mean? Like, just...
Well, and here comes maybe a point we should have brought up about the people outside the courthouse in Folie Deux is, yes, we know Joker's a villain, but I feel like the lines are so blurred in people's minds now that people only talk about how much they love the Joker and how Joker is so great and he's, the perfect antithesis to Batman, and who they love as the Joker and what portrayals of the Joker that they do. Like, I love Heath Ledger's Joker, but man, would I want to hang out and have a beer with that dude? Shit, no, I wouldn't. No. But so I think
it does shit me, to steal Brendan's phrase. It shits me when people share like memes and stuff about like the Joker had a point, and I was like, boy, did you miss the point if you think the Joker had a point.
And that's
But like
why I hate
that's
movies.
where we are now, is that there are people who are like, well, I don't know. I think the Joker might have been right and Batman might have been wrong. I was like, oh my God, y'all.
Well, I
Stop.
mean, Batman's the reason that all these criminals are, filing out their activity too, and he's abusing the mentally ill, and it just
But that's
people
why
get
I
carried away.
can't stand movies like Maleficent and stuff like that, when it's like you take these iconic villains and make a movie about them, but then make them either a sympathetic villain or make them the hero. It's like, no, they're bad. Let them be bad.
All right. Well,
My point being, if Joker coerces Harley in an evil and abusive way, yeah, because he's the effing Joker. It's what he
Yeah.
does. Like,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
cares? That's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah. Well, we kind of went off on that one, but that's okay. It was kind of fun.
Didn't we? What?
I forgot even how that all started, but that's okay. Next email is from Tom Fallows. It says, hey, I hope everything's well. Hope everything's going well with baby Andy and Catherine. In your last episode, you said you didn't like the trope in movies where a badass character takes in a kid, but isn't that the story of Robin? Did you mean a villainous character? Because it confuses me a little bit given your love for Robin. Also, given that Matt Reeves said that the Batman could not delve into Batman's more fantastical characters, does that not half the potential of the villains that he can use? Or will these characters be grounded up? Will we see a Poison Ivy who can't control plants, or a Mr. Freeze who suffers from pneumonia? Thanks for the great podcast, Tom. Thanks, Tom. Well, I'll address the first one because, when I say I don't like the trope where they soften a badass character by making them babysit a kid, I don't. But when I say that, I'm talking about like a specific movie or story. Like, it's part of why I don't like the movie Logan. Because the movie, it's like, oh, Logan, he's grizzled and he doesn't care about anything anymore. But now he's got to play father to this little girl. Look, it's going to bring his humanity back. It's part of the reason I hate the stupid Despicable Me movies, where they were like, we're going to make a movie about a supervillain. I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. And he's going to adopt 3 adorable kids. I was like, why are you doing this? What's the point of that? The movie Elektra, same thing. It's like, Elektra's getting a spinoff. Oh, that's fun. And she's going to babysit a little kid. I just feel like it's such an annoying trope to like soften a character. And I said the same thing about Penguin, is like, even though Victor is not a kid, it's the same kind of idea where it's like, well, and now he's got this underage mentor and it's going to allow it to show the human side or whatever. I just don't like it. But I think that's a very different situation than the story of Robin, because Robin has been around for 80 years and is like an integral part of the Batman mythos. It's not like they just introduced Robin into one story or one movie to soften Batman.
Like a plot device, yeah.
Right, yeah. Like Robin's, honestly, he was created as a plot device, let's be honest.
Yes.
Back in 1940, right? He was. But at this point, he is not that anymore. He has served so many story functions over the years, and to be a son, a brother, and a best friend and a partner to Batman, that it's not as simple as, oh, we're going to soften Batman by introducing a kid. Whereas, again, a lot of these other movies and TV, when they do it, I'm like, God, this is just so tired. So that's, for me, the difference. As for the other question, so if Matt Reeves said that Batman's villains can't be fantastical, then what is he going to do? That's a great question, Tom. But well, Jamie, why don't you address that first?
Well, first things first, if he's not going to even attempt the idea of them being fantastical, then stay the hell away from the fantastical characters. Don't give me a Bane. Don't give me a Poison Ivy. Don't give me a Mr. Freeze. Don't give me a Clayface. Give me Joker, Riddler. Obviously, we already got Catwoman. Already got, Penguin. We kind of see where he's playing with, but there are characters that you can make that work with, and there are characters that I don't feel like you can. Now, if he comes up with one, I'll watch it and I'll give it its fair shake, but I'll probably be overly critical if he does a Mr. Freeze that has pneumonia, as you say, or Poison Ivy who's an eco-terrorist, but she doesn't really have anything to do with controlling plants. then that just doesn't interest me at all.
All right, Brendan.
Yeah, I agree with Jamie. And it does, like, it handicaps you straight away because you can't use some really cool villains, and then if you do, you need to remove them so far from what they are. What's the point? Yeah, I mean, look, if you believe the latest rumor that I read a week or two ago that, like, the Court of Owls is potentially going to be used in this in a sequel to the Batman, that's something I think you could use in this world and sort of just remove the supernatural aspect of it. That would work fine, and it's something different that we haven't seen on a live action big screen movie before. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things, like, why bother if you're not going to go, if you can't use them, just don't.
No, I mean, I think we all agree on that, because yes, you severely limit your options, and then you have to use what's left, which honestly you already kind of have. There's not much left after that. Or you have to try so hard to change a fantastical character in one that is not, that it kind of ceases being them anyway. So yeah.
I feel like Nolan really towed that line well with, say, Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he left it open enough. He didn't shut a door on the, Ra's shows back up in a vision in The Dark Knight Rises, and is Ra's al Ghul immortal? It's just a simple question. There was never an answer provided. Was it just a vision? Was it Raz's spirit? Is there a Lazarus pit? We don't know, because Nolan never really provided those answers, but he also didn't shy completely away from it either. He left it as a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I don't want to see Christopher Nolan do a hyper-realistic version of Poison Ivy or Mr. Freeze or Clayface or any of those other ones. But, again, I feel like the brilliance of Nolan and his team that brought those movies to life is, if they did start delving into like a Scarecrow or something like that, I mean, I think they did it really well. I feel like Reeves has the potential to do these things really well and still keep it in that grounded reality that he wants to do. But I also don't want him to just slam the door on all the possibility.
Yep. Agreed. We shall see how that goes.
That's why the Court of Owls could work, because you don't need to change it that much, and it would work in that world. You just need that small tweak where it's not unrecognizable.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like that would make sense. I feel like you end up going back to Two-Face, because you can just scar him and just make it not too over the top, and he can still be Two-Face. But like, for the fans clamoring for Mr. Freeze, I'm like, what do you think he's going to do? How do you think that's going to work? You saw the first movie. You're watching The Penguin. How do you think he's going to do Mr. Freeze? It's going to be a dude in a blue raincoat with a fire extinguisher, if we're lucky.
No, it's somebody that locks people into walk-in freezers at restaurants.
Yeah. All right. Next email is from
Vic.
Next email is Stuart from Guernsey. It says, "Hey guys, now what I'm about to say might get me off some people's Christmas card list, but I'm not really hyped for Joker 2. This is the only DC movie that I haven't been excited for since Catwoman. When the first Joker came out, I enjoyed the movie for what it was, and even then, I didn't feel it was a great representation of the actual character. When me and my friend came out, he said that was great to see the origin of the Joker and how he started, and I tried to explain to him that this wasn't the actual Joker and how he doesn't really have an origin, etc. Pretty much everything I said went over his head. Now, 5 years later, the more we have creators wanting to take a different spin on characters we love, the more it's just not sitting well with me and is taking my enjoyment away from the build-up to the movies. I really hope in the new DCU, the portrayals of the characters will be closer to the source material, and they will just want us to enjoy what is already established and not want to take a different swing on a character just for the sake of being different or being afraid of taking things that we love from the comics. Saying that, I do have tickets for opening night. I hope this is one of those movies where I get more enjoyment out of it than I was expecting. Anyway, I hope you're doing well and you enjoy the movie, Stuart." So no questions there, Stuart, but very appropriate based on the tangent we just went on.
I want to
Right?
insert the Morgan Freeman gif of good luck.
That's exactly what was going through my head. Right as, oh my Lord. Exactly.
But yeah, all that is fair. And I think that we also accidentally kind of already hit on a bunch of that stuff in the past 20 minutes or so. Well, Stuart, I hope you liked the movie too. um, all right, this next message is from our pal Julian Chan. It says, "Hey, Andy, Jamie, and Brendan, I wanted to chime in on the Lanterns series. Like a lot of fans, I'm disappointed that they're not going with a younger Hal. As you guys correctly pointed out, someone in their 40s would have been perfect for a prime Hal and a mentor as well. All that aside, I do like Kyle Chandler, and I think he's a good choice if that's the age they're going for. I know there was a lot of concern when they said it was going to be a true detective style show. My guess is that they're trying to create something akin to the seminal Hard Traveling Heroes series by the legendary Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil, a series that featured Green Lantern and Green Arrow traveling across the U.S. with a Guardian, and it also introduced Jon Stewart. I concur with the concerns that if these guys spend 95% of the show out of costume, I'll be very disappointed. I just wonder if you guys agree that that's what they're going for. Anyway, I wanted to get that off my chest. Keep up the great bat work, Julian." Thanks, Julian. So back to Lanterns, which there's a short list for Jon Stewart, some actors I'd never heard of, to be honest. And then they just hired a director, too, for the pilot. So that is moving right along. But I guess the question is are they going for Hard Traveling Heroes? But it sounds like everything else, Julian, is sort of agreeing with some of the conversation we had. Was it last time? Maybe? Just about what we would have done with Hal versus what they're doing, and then hoping that even though it's set on Earth, it's not so grounded that they don't act like Green Lanterns and they don't dress like them either. I think all that's fair. But yeah, any thoughts on this, Brendan?
Well, it goes back to what we were saying before. If you're going to remove the characters that far from the source material, what's the point? I'm cautiously optimistic about this show. You know me, if things go too sci-fi, too out there, it kind of loses me a little bit. That's why I didn't, I know you talked about it a few episodes back doing the review of the look back at Green Lantern, but I'm with you guys. Like, I like that movie. I kind of think it had a nice balance. But yeah, I'm not interested in seeing True Detective, which I watched True Detective the first season for the first time this year. I'm not interested in seeing that sort of show, but the characters are called Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. It doesn't interest me at all. I want to see, a Green Lantern with a power ring and in a costume with a mask and fighting bad guys.
Creating constructs, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Do it flying.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Just watch this space, I guess.
Yeah. I agree. And I think we even talked about that. If it wasn't on that episode, it was on a recent one where I essentially said the same thing. I have no problem with it being Earth-based. They just better still be Green Lanterns. Yeah. I don't want two guys wandering through a barn in trench coats and their rings are only used as flashlights. Like, I don't want that. They still need to act like Green Lanterns and dress like Green Lanterns and use their powers.
Well,
and if
Todd Phillips is directing the pilot, and they're going to drive around in a green Chevy Nova, and the main character's name is going to be Jordan Halliburton, and you guys are going to love it. It's going to be fantastic.
Matt Reeves is consulting, and instead of rings, they have green belts that don't do anything, but rings are just a little too fantastical, guys.
Whenever you do the mailbox follow-up to this episode, I'm busy. Just to let you know.
Anything else to add? Are we good?
I said everything I needed to say about it last time we talked.
Yeah, I mean, I cautiously optimistic. I'm right there with you on that, Brendan. All right, this one is from Benjamin. It says, "Hello, casters of bats and pumpkin spice. It's been a while. I'm glad to be in the mailbox again. My question is in two parts, both from Atlantis. With news of the Dynamic Duo animated movie, along with Creature Commandos, do you think we're going to get an animated Aquaman project from the new DCU? Since we've gotten no indication thus far from the Gods and Monsters slate of Atlantis in live action, I wonder if they would introduce Aquaman in animation. I think to not have Aquaman in a slate called Gods and Monsters would be a sin. And since they said actors will go back and forth from animation to live action, it'd be cool to introduce a major character like Aquaman in animation and then continue him in live action. Let alone the savings in production cost. Throne of Atlantis is somehow approaching a 10th anniversary in 2025, and I'd say we're way overdue for another animated Aqua feature. The character is perfect for animation. Number 2, Andy, I know that you're an Aquaman fan. Any comic recommendations or favorite Aquaman runs? I'm currently catching up on the new 52 Aquaman, and I love it. I've also read the Black Manta miniseries from a few years back when they tied into the Aquaman miniseries. I love those both too. Highly recommended. Between Joker 2 and Penguin, I thought I'd ask something as far from your favorite DC adjective, grounded, as possible, and ship us off to actual DC Comics fantasy for a bit. Hope it's been helpful. Your fellow bat-obsessed podhead, Benjamin. Thanks, Benjamin. And first of all, you don't want to bury the lead about Dynamic Duo. We got an announcement for a Dynamic Duo animated movie, theatrical, that features Dick Grayson and Jason Todd as Robins. So let's talk about that real quick since it got brought up.
I mean, before we even delve into that, have we even discussed on the show about the animated miniseries? Or
what animated miniseries?
Was this animated or was this live action? They're basically going to do a series on HBO Max chronicling the Robins. Or no, it wasn't that.
I think you're talking about. I think
that's what we asked for.
Yes.
And then they released this news, and this is kind of going to do some origin stuff to it.
I think you're mixing up something you proposed on a previous episode with this announcement.
Yes, you're right.
So the announcement is a animated film featuring Dick Grayson and Jason Todd.
But they talked about they were going to be like origin stuff in there for Robins, right? I'm not crazy about that.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. So how do you feel about it, though?
Well, I like my idea better, but I'll take it.
Okay. What about you, Brendan?
I'm keen for it. It's going to be interesting to see those characters on the big screen. And the fact that it's in animation too, I'm more psyched for that than some other projects. So, and I like Robin, so let's do it.
Yeah, I agree. It's very unexpected. It's interesting that it's animated, but I'm excited at the prospect. I think it could be really cool. And we know we're getting Damian in live action. So will this somehow set up the other Robins that have existed prior to Damian? And I hope so. I hope it's like in canon, even if it's animated. I think that could be really cool. So much like Lanterns, cautiously optimistic is a good word. But yeah, it's exciting and weird, but I'm down. Anyway, as for the other question about Aquaman, I'll do the last question first, which is the things you mentioned are what I would have recommended. So I'm afraid I'm not much help as far as other Aquaman comics recommendations. So I have a soft spot for like the 80s miniseries where he has the blue suit, but I don't know if that's because it's good or just because I liked it back in the 80s. So check it out. But if it's not good, I'm sorry. But otherwise, I think you're reading the right stuff. But
pretty much anything Jeff Johns did with Aquaman, I thought was great, whether it be in his solo title or in Justice League. For the life of me, I'm so sorry that I cannot remember who the writer or the artist's name was, but the Aquaman series in Rebirth, up until the writing change that happened probably up in the early to mid 20s of the run, was fantastic, which is where the deluge happens, I think it is. Mm-hmm. So, and there is an artist, and it's like an Eastern European name. I can't remember what the fellow's name is, but this artwork is absolutely fantastic in those books. And the story and the writing was really good too. Like he fights the Shaggy Man in one of the early issues of that. It was a really good run up until the writing change happened with it. So I would also recommend the first couple of years of the run in Rebirth, which would have happened in 2016, I think.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. So probably like 16 to 18. I would look those up.
All right. Well, thank you. That was good. And then as far as like Aquaman being introduced in animation, Brendan, any thoughts on that?
I I honestly, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I mean, Aquaman was still the most recent DC movie we've had, so you know, I can understand them wanting to wait a little bit to introduce Aquaman. If they wanted to do an animation, I'd be down. I honestly don't have a strong opinion either way.
All right. What about you, Jamie?
I'm saying I really don't. I'm good either way. I think my preference probably is this is a predominantly live action universe. So your main players, your 7, 10, whatever it is, Justice Leaguers, I would prefer they all be introduced in a live action format. But if animation's the way it's got to go, I'll roll with it and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the reason we haven't heard anything about Aquaman is the same reason we hadn't heard anything about Wonder Woman, is because when James Gunn announced the slate, those two players were still very much up in the air, especially Aquaman, because the Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom hadn't even come out yet. So I think they were waiting to see what happened with that before they decided what they were even going to do. But I have to imagine they have a plan for the character one way or another. I think it's a pretty safe bet that Momoa is done, and I'm okay with that. I still really like those two movies, so I'm good with the two I got. But yeah, I think that I'm sure James Gunn is looking at ways to introduce the character elsewhere so he can still be part of the universe, but it was just too early to talk about that way back when they announced the slate. Animation's an option, but yeah, I think that it's not the only option. Well, okay. We still have a couple emails left, but I'm going to go ahead and save those for next time because we're coming up on that 2-hour mark, and it's time to wrap it up. I got school tomorrow. Crap, I do, don't I? It's Sunday night. Sad. Anyway, let's wrap it up. If you've got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, you can send that to Holy BatCast at rf4rm.com. But that will do it for this episode. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining me for the fun that was Folie à Deux. Jamie, thanks for joining. And if you've got anything you want to plug, now's the time.
Letterboxd, Real Fans Groups, smack dab in the middle. I'm like halfway through Scarathon. I'm only at like 53 movies, so I'm slacking this year, but life gets in the way.
Yeah, that's okay. Understand. Busy. And Brendan, I'm glad we could work this out. We could all be together.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Glad you had today off.
Yes, yeah. Today's a public holiday here, so I was able to record at a time that suited everyone.
Yay! I love it. So, what else have you been up to?
Same as Jamie, really. Knee deep in Scarathon at the moment. Early October, decorated the whole house the other day for spooky season, and just enjoying the spooky time of the year, to be perfectly honest. Oh, and this coming Saturday, I'm going to my first ever Fright Nights at Movie World.
That'll be fun.
So yeah, I've wanted to go a couple of years and just it hasn't happened, and finances, and it's like, no, this year I'm going. So a friend of mine, because I can't go with Jess because just no way she'd go to that. A friend of mine, and we're going on Saturday night, so I'm really excited. I get to go through, hopefully the crowds aren't too bad, but I get to go through the Deceased maze, Jamie.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear.
The Conjuring and the Deceased mazes are my two priorities. Anything else after that's going to be cherry on top.
Well, as long as you've got your top two, you should be able to do those. You should be fine.
I hope so.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it is spooky season. It's lots of fun. Like you guys, I'm just trying to enjoy it while I can, while waiting for this baby. And also now waiting for another hurricane to come our way. Yay. So see how that goes. But I already told you guys where to follow me. Like I said, there is fun, spooky content on the Real Fans show. We've already released the Halloween commercial special, and there's more to come there. So check that out if you like. And that will wrap us up for this episode. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for downloading or streaming the show. Please do follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, something else you can do to support us, that's super easy, doesn't cost a penny. Just rate and review us. A nice review goes a long way, and we would really appreciate that. Again, find the show on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast. And if you got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, that email address, again, is holybatcast@rf4rm.com. Our theme music was created by the talented Gore Venkateswar. You can find his work at gvtunes.com. So that will do it for this episode. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Same bat channel. Holy BatCast is not affiliated with Warner Brothers or DC Entertainment. The views and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for. Of course, I have a frog in my throat. I'm going to do that again.
Had to mute because Henry was crying in the background. You would
Well,
have
you
to
know, if you guys didn't smoke 7 packs of cigarettes a day,
I
you
know.
wouldn't have these problems.
Well, the thing is I idolize the Joker, and so I've taken up smoking.
As so suits you completely.
Yeah, it's very me.